Is that John Cooper Clark down there?
Say again?
That looked like John Cooper Clark with those sunglasses.
Well, very good impersonate. He was just testing the line,
Oh, yeah.
the reception before we got involved. He's coming in for the second half, so we'll
Yeah.
we'll give everybody a brief, but we'll have to be a little bit accommodating while we establish contact. So if we're still on with the quiz, we might just pause for a bit just to get everything sorted.
How are we all?
Well, I'm all
Thank you,
right.
Jonathan.
Good. Oh,
We Liverpool supporters are very well, thank you.
Yes.
you deliver what?
We Liverpool supporters are very well, thank you.
Oh, of course you are. Yes, that includes my wife, unfortunately.
Yeah. Look, this is sporting memories. It's got nothing to do with football as a Wednesday night. As a Wednesday night, I've got nothing to do with football.
Yeah.
Doug's joining. Keith is at the airport at the moment.
Yeah.
Oh, he's off on a holiday, yeah.
Loading his sister-in-law on the back of a plane by freight.
Yeah. He's
Some terrible refereeing decisions this weekend.
Yes, they were bad, weren't they? Yeah.
Yeah, in the Premiership and at Hillsborough.
morning, Doug.
Morning,
Morning.
Doug.
Morning.
Well,
We're all as well as can be expected, I think.
I can assume that.
You've all done very well.
Don't use
John, how did Wednesday get on Saturday?
They drew 1-1. They were winning 1-0 after 6 minutes. They missed a penalty, which is typical. And there's only one thing ever happens: if we miss a penalty, we don't win. Traditionally, against Shrewsbury, we don't do well anyway. It's one of those daft things that over the decades, some of the teams you play against, whatever division it is, you don't do well. And Shrewsbury is one of them. But
No, it's
we had
true.
we had a perfectly good goal disallowed for offside, and everybody, all the pundits, all the reporters say it wasn't. And so we would have probably won 2-1, and I wouldn't have been moaning, but yeah, 1-1 against Shrewsbury at home is a
It's not a
poor,
good
poor
result,
result.
no.
A
No.
poor result. But United are playing well.
Yes, they are, aren't they? Getting better. But I
I've been
thought,
very impressed.
but you know, it's funny, isn't it? When you come away from a game, as I did on Saturday at Millwall, and you listen to the other team's supporters, and
Yeah.
they're in a different world, and
Yeah.
I'm sure we are to them, and
Yeah.
it's a completely different way of looking at things.
However fair and logical you try to be, I lose it all with football. I stop being
course.
fair. I stop being rational.
And that's the whole fun of it, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that's right. I
So long as it
let
remains
myself go
fun.
at football. Yeah.
It's not something to write a newspaper editorial about. It's gut reaction.
Yeah.
Morning.
morning.
Good morning, Dave.
Morning, Dave.
Where's Susan today?
She's actually in hospital.
Oh
I'm
dear.
sorry.
No, it's all right. She's had a knee replacement yesterday.
Patelectomy.
Pardon?
A what?
Patelectomy.
Patella. Yeah, patella.
Ah.
Well done.
You
Yeah.
normally come at the reason for the impertinent question, just let Keith in, was that you normally come up as Susan on your.
Yes, I found out how to change my name.
Oh, that's dangerous.
I didn't realise I could
Very
do it.
dangerous.
Deep Paul. Is that Deep Paul?
Deep ball, yep.
It'll be Dick
Decree
Whittington
nice
next
eye.
week. Well, whilst you've been coming on board, and there's still people like Collins coming on board, we've had a test from Trent Bridge, so it's all looking good for second half.
Oh, good.
Colin, our outside broadcaster, is in beautiful,
I hope-
baked in beautiful sunshine in
I hope he's
Nottingham.
got his tight trousers and white sketches on, like the other lads have.
Yeah. Yeah.
The suits that barely fasten.
Yes.
Mm.
I went to a rugby club old players reunion lunch and afternoon on Saturday on the Wirral,
Yeah.
and there were 250 of us.
Wow.
Incredible.
Sounds scary.
All paying 40 quid a head for lunch, which was roast beef, followed by apple pie and custard, of course, being an old school thing.
Yeah.
And then you had a raffle where you all had an envelope. You wrote your name on the envelope, put a £20 note in it, and then they drew the raffle prizes. Then they had an auction. I reckon they must have raised about £40,000 for the club. Brilliant, because they'd run out of money, during lockdown, and
They're not on their own.
they're not, no, they're back in National 1, but they've lost the first 2 games.
I see no ships.
Right. I think we've got a quorum. Paul the Biscuit's away
In Mallorca.
on another honeymoon, I guess.
Yeah. He's doing the Sheffield Half Marathon this weekend
Aye.
Yeah.
on Sunday. So
Incredible.
he'll be training on the beach as we speak.
He's had 2
Probably.
hip replacements. He's got to be 153 years of age, and he's eating biscuits for England, and he does these marathons, and he does
Married 40 times.
40 times.
For the
That's the
same
thing that
woman.
staggers me. That's
Ian, 153. I've told you 300 million times not to
not
exaggerate.
to exaggerate. Yeah. Right. I bring this meeting to order. Can we have some news of the group from John?
Well, I got some bad news from Keith yesterday about Big Paul, who's been brought out of the coma, but he's still got no feeling below his neck. He seems to have either badly damaged or severed a nerve, and got 2 discs out of place at the top of his spine, but around the neck area. So it's bad news at the moment. One can only hope that in time the nerve damage will repair, but at the moment he's in a bad way, poor lad.
He's not in the spinal ward yet, so he's not.
No, they couldn't. There's
Needing
no
a
room for the
specialist.
spinal ward. It's probably
Sorry?
full of foreigners from Liverpool and the like, so we can't get a good Sheffield lad in there.
Well, we could
Not,
never
well,
get
not
off.
in
Our,
Sheffield, it's Penistone, yeah.
well, we Scousers seldom get off our backs unless there's something in it. Well, that's sad, really sad news, isn't it?
It's really
He's such a
sad,
lovely
yeah.
man.
Yeah.
Very much so, yeah. It did.
Yeah. Nothing other specific except that we had a very good meeting at Bayton last Wednesday at the Lifestyle Centre when Jimmy McCalliog turned up and regaled us for over an hour about his career and opinions and this and that about football. And he was a very nice chap. I mean, many of us had seen him at Crystal Peak Shopping Centre on Monday and Tuesday, getting autographed copies of his book. But he just turned up with his wife and chatted with us. Of course, he wanted to sell his book as well. And fortunately, he sold 7 copies. And there were only 11 of us there. So he did quite well. But yeah, it was fascinating. A lovely man, very friendly. Couldn't have been better. And Keith talked to him about appearing on Zoom at some time. And he said he's happy to do that.
Is he living locally, John?
No, he's only staying locally. He runs a bed and breakfast in Ayr. Not in the air, but in Ayr. And it featured on...
It's an Airbnb then.
Yeah, Airbnb. Oh, dear.
Very good.
That's fantastic. Yeah. And he's been on 4 in a Bed, that's been repeated constantly, apparently. TV programme where people who run B&Bs and stuff experience each other's delights, shall we say, and then criticise them. Yeah, he's good bloke. But I've just finished his autobiography, and I enjoyed it up to a point. But then for me, it dragged a bit because obviously as a Wednesdayite, I wanted to hear how we felt about Wednesday and the cup running 66 and things like that. And he talked about it, but not in as much detail as I would have liked. And then he goes on to his other parts of his career. And to be fair, his career with Wolves was more successful. But he only had 8-9 months with Manchester United, and he says the most upsetting thing about his football career was Manchester United relegated.
Yeah.
When he was when the rest of the football enjoyed it. But he said it ranked higher than losing the cup final with Wednesday. So obviously I lost a bit of respect for him in there. But he's a good bloke. He's a good bloke, and look forward to, on Zoom. I think he should be very entertaining. So over to you, Ian.
Right. Well, I'm hastily looking at the BBC Sports page and fighting my dog off, which has suddenly got very clingy on me, because Dave the Beard hasn't appeared. So we haven't got our sports news of the week. So I think we're going to have to do it on a self-help basis. And
Keith's asked me to do something about Jimmy Greaves, Ian.
I was just going to say,
sorry about that. Yeah.
Could you start with Jimmy Greaves, which is a really sad loss, but
it is a sad loss. And doing a little bit of research. I mean, there's so much information, and there were so many epitaphs, so much in the Sunday papers, and subsequently, it's not in the Sunday papers, in the Monday papers. It's difficult to narrow it down. I'll do a bit here. James Peter Greaves, MBE, born 20th of February 1940, was an English professional footballer. He's England's fourth highest international goal scorer with 44 goals in 57 games. And I've always thought that put him well above Wayne Rooney, Bobby Charlton and Gary Lineker for strike rate. I mean, he's the best England striker we've had. You look back at Tommy Lawton and Nat Lofthouse, and their records are blooming good as well. But Greaves played quite a few more games. He was more consistent with his scoring. Super. He was the top European striker in terms of number of goals scored, 357, until Messi and Ronaldo decided to get feisty. And so he's third behind Messi and Ronaldo, and a goal in front of Gerd Muller, I think. And who wouldn't want to be a goal in front of Gerd Muller? So it's got a fantastic scoring record. Yeah, so this is Tottenham's highest ever goal scorer, 266 goals. The highest goal scorer in the history of English top flight football, 357 goals. And he scored more hat-tricks, 6, for England than anyone else. And he finished as the First Division's top scorer in 6 separate seasons, which is the highest. I think Thierry Henry managed 4, and Greavesy did 6. But Steve Bloomer, the old Derby player, I think he did it 5 seasons running, but that was in the 1890s. And without being too disparaging, I think it was slightly tougher in the 1960s than the 1890s, which is why we were a pretty good team in the 1890s. It was a lot easier for us. Yeah. So he started playing for Chelsea in a youth player for Chelsea in 1955. But in 57, he made the first team, and in 4 seasons, 157 appearances, he got 124 goals, including 41 in 1 season, which is still the record for Chelsea. And then AC Milan spotted him. He didn't want to go to AC Milan. He was more or less forced to go to AC Milan. And you read a lot about football, and you find a lot of players are forced to go to places that they don't want to go, just to suit the team that they're playing for, either for cash or because they get a player in exchange, something like that. So his time in Italy was sort of generally regarded as a bit of a failure, but he played 12 games and scored 9 goals. It was only a failure from a personal point of view because he didn't like it there. He didn't like the regime. He didn't like the training. He didn't like training, full stop. But I mean, Martin Chivers told the story about when Tottenham were training, and Chivers had only just gone to Tottenham, and they went on a long run, and then a lot of the old wags were at the back of the run and just trying to find a way to get back home without actually running. And Greavesy pulled up on a truck, and he shepherded them all aboard. And Chivers said, "Well, I'm new to the club. What do you do? I'll go with the seniors." So they got back home. They got back to the Tottenham's training camp, and one of the coaches spotted them and took them to task. And Greavesy blamed Chivers. He said it was all his idea. We just followed him. Well, there you go. Tottenham, 321 appearances, 220 games. West Ham, Again, he was forced out to West Ham from Tottenham, despite a magnificent servant he'd been for Tottenham. They brought Martin Peters in and got rid of Greavesy. Who's ever heard of Martin Peters? Anyway, they brought him in, got rid of Greavesy, and despite, you know, being towards the tail end of his career, he got 13 goals in 38 games, retired for 4 years, started drinking quite a bit, and came back and played for teams like Brentwood, Chelmsford City, Barnet, who he played 51 times for while he was drinking quite a lot, and he scored 16 goals. So he still got it. England under 23 played 12 times, scored 13 goals. So terrific record, a terrific player. And the goals, the stats don't just prove anything. I don't know if any of you have seen Greavesy play back in the day.
Yeah.
Torrance scored a couple against Coventry in 1960. Yeah.
Yeah. Keith came up with some interesting stats actually about his appearances, performances against the Sheffield teams. Paul the Biscuit had contacted Keith, and he'd circulated this, but I'll mention it anyway. I think it's worth mentioning. I saw Tony Curry's debut game for United against Tottenham, a night game, and United won 3-2. You'll remember that, Dave the Fish, won't you?
Oh,
Yeah, good game. Not for a Wednesday night, but a good game. I used to go a lot to Bramall Lane and upset myself because you were a lot better than we were, but I just wanted to see a good football team. Not United, the team that they were playing. Yeah,
yeah, of course.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. I was
So
to this
United-
at Hillsborough, John.
Barry Wagstaff and Gil Rees scored for United, as did Tony Curry, and Jimmy Greaves and Martin Chivers, I think, scored Tottenham's goals. But he seemed to love playing against United. So he scored a goal in 10 of the 11 games he played for Spurs against United. 10 of the 11 games. But against Wednesday, he only scored in 3 of the 13 games he played against Wednesday. I think we'd got a decent defence back in those days, back in the 60s anyway. Where Jimmy Greaves himself, in one of his memoirs, mentions Peter Swan and said that the bloke was made of rock and oak. Like, he couldn't get past him. And he blames England's failure in the 1962 World Cup in Chile on the fact that Swanee he was ill and then he was injured, or he was injured, then he was ill. But anyway, he didn't play. He went to Chile, but didn't play. Bobby Robson was the same. There was a third player, I forget who it was, a top player. So they lost 3 of the top players and lost in the 4th game. They got through the group stage, lost to Brazil, where Garrincha scored 2 goals for Brazil. Yeah, so he's got a fantastic record. I think unless you've seen him, even if it's only on telly and some of the highlights they've shown you recently, you can't tell what sort of a graceful player he was. What surprised me is that in a couple of the goals that they showed you of his highlights, 2 of them were like 25-yard crackers, and a couple were excellent headers. But obviously, he was known mainly for scoring from round about the 6-yard box or the penalty spot to the goal line in that particular area.
You say that, John, although it brought out that it wasn't that there were tap-ins. He actually got himself into position and he guided. I think Shearer said he just guided the ball in.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, pummel it.
He didn't panic. He didn't slam it.
Composure. And the other thing they said, which you need somebody to remind you when then you think, oh God, yes, absolutely right. The pitches in those days were quagmires.
That's right. I mean, Dion Dublin said on Saturday night, Sunday night, like, if you were playing on these carpets that footballers play on today, they got many more goals. But although they do say he skipped across the mud like a mud skipper, but nevertheless, you've got that to. I remember once playing for the school team. It took me 4 kicks to get the ball from 2 feet away from the goal line across the goal line because it was encased in mud. And that was just typical, wasn't it?
And Greaves
grounds like Leicester or Derby, and what you got was a foot of mud. Sorry, Jonathan.
No, I was just going to say, Greaves had that sort of compactness of movement that you associate mentally. You have a vision of a player, the great players, and there was an economy about the way he moved and turned, and which was electrifying.
His drinking exploits were, I think, fairly well known. But there's one story, and I don't know if it's true. Peter, you may be able to confirm it, but I was told, so this is allegedly, that waiting for a corner at Anfield, he turned to somebody like Ron Yates or whoever the centre half was at the time, said, "So where are we off to tonight then, lads?" He wasn't entirely focused.
No.
There was a story in the paper this morning about a letter that he and Bobby Moore were having a tussle for the ball in the middle of the field, and all of a sudden they linked arms and started doing a jig.
The other one I
Think
like.
about
Go on, Peter. Sorry.
the thing about his goal scoring. Harry Kane has scored 11 goals for England
Yeah.
from the spot.
Yes.
Greaves never scored a penalty. Never.
Is
You
that
know,
right?
all his
Yeah.
goals were
Yeah.
open play goals.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
And Wayne Rooney got lots of goals from penalties, didn't he? As did Gary Lineker. I'm
Yeah.
not so sure about Bobby Charlton.
Yeah.
The thing I loved, and again, it came across in the Dion Dublin piece on Match of the Day, John, was he was loved and known by the younger generation as much for Saints and Greavesy.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know,
Saints and
if
Greaves.
there was ever a program that was cobbled together, what is the forerunner of the modern Match of the Day, that was it.
Definitely.
You know,
Yeah.
because Saint was, he always gave me the impression he was as nervous as hell on television.
Yeah.
Greavesy couldn't give a damn, you know, or so it would seem. And yet, I'm sure it was very professionally run, but it was so relaxed. And the boys on the box, they say it was the part of their upbringing, you know, watching the preview of the matches with Saints and
Yeah.
Greavesy.
Mm.
Fantastic program,
It
wasn't
was a
it?
superb programme.
Yeah.
You learned a lot about football, but it was funny.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, this is what they said, wasn't it? It needs to be fun. Football.
Yeah.
It's entertainment. It's a game, and it's fun.
Yeah.
Which is why the ITV it was on, which is why they dropped it, because they weren't taking the game seriously.
Yeah.
What a load of codswallop.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
So, R.I.P. Jimmy Greaves, a great player. One thing you know what I feel about Messi, but there are a couple of people compared Greaves to Messi this weekend. I think that's a bit outrageous, but it's the way when you see one of the goals he scored in particular, where he does skip across the pitch and slaloms through about 5 players, and then the goalkeeper thought, shall I shoot? No, I won't. I'll go around the goalkeeper and I'll tap it in. So I don't think he'd got the same tight control as Messi in a tight space with 3 or 4 players around him. But once he was on that graceful run of about 20, 30 yards, he had got the close control.
Yeah.
And there were a couple of times he lost control, but the defenders were so surprised that they didn't get the ball, and he just picked it up again and went through him. Brilliant player.
Again, I mean, it's an interesting compare and contrast, but both brains must be agile to an extreme.
Yeah.
To be thinking ahead and da. But can Messi do what Greaves did in those quagmires, you know?
No.
And you're talking about taking 4 attempts to shift a ball 2 feet.
Yeah.
Well, you can imagine and you see players with the ball. In fact, this happened this week, ball stuck under the feet, couldn't get it in the net. You know, Mane was one. Well, that didn't seem to happen to Jimmy Greaves.
No.
It was once it was attached to his foot, that's where it went.
It was
And
his.
George
You're
Best
right.
is the only other I can think who had that sort of level of control.
Yeah, you're right, Ian. Messi and Ronaldo have never had to play on quagmires consistently, so week after week. Although there were some players, I remember a United player in particular, unfortunately, the fish has disappeared. Billy Hodgson, known as a mudlark. He loved it when there was a foot of mud. Yeah, and he got faster. He was faster in mud than he was on firm ground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He wears skates.
Yeah.
Take the studs out and they can slide.
Mud skipper. So, R.I.P. Jimmy Greaves.
Well,
Great Jimmy Greaves.
Thanks for that tribute. I think it's a lovely piece. he's
It's
he's
a
the kind of
crime.
guy, a lovable rogue, I think, is
Yeah,
he falls into
yeah.
that category. He couldn't do any wrong because people were always on his side, and it's interesting to see and we all go through difficult stages in our life, and he clearly went through a difficult one when he lost the outlet of football and he took to drink, and who hasn't done that at some stage?
Yeah,
But everybody rallied round him. That's the sign of the character of the
Well,
man.
that's right. That's right.
You
And he
know?
did amazingly well to come back from the depth of alcoholism
Yeah.
and achieve what he did subsequently on TV.
Yeah.
Mm.
Just mention Billy Hodgson, Dave.
Yeah, I just heard that. That was my wife just checking in.
Right.
Yeah, I heard you say
You're
about
right.
Mark. I thought that that's Billy Hodgson. Yeah.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Every picture you saw of him, he was just like Willy Wonka's chocolate
Stig
factory.
of the dump. Yeah, Stig of the dump. He was, yeah.
Like Frank Cotton in South Africa.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you mentioned quagmires, and I think that was one of the great characteristics of English football at its best, sort of at that period. You could watch a game where it was impossible to conceive that the players could ever get the ball or pass the ball or do anything with it. And some of the best games I've ever seen have been played in absolute quagmire. And actually, I remember a game, John, against Wednesday at Highfield Road. And it was a fabulous game in the late 80s. And I think it was a goalless draw in the end, but it was absolutely fabulous because everybody managed to control the ball.
That reminds me of a game, Leicester City against Wednesday, with Banks in one goal and Springett in the other. Total quagmire. And it was 0-0. And at the end, both goalkeepers applauded each other off and sort of went off arm in arm.
Nice.
Two of the best goalkeepers in the world at that time. I might exaggerate a bit about Springett, but he was a top keeper. And Banks was obviously one of the best in the world.
I think the Midlands suffered the most. Nottingham Forest, Derby County.
Yeah.
They really, it must be like riding a bike, when your legs are solid when you get off the bike. It must have been awful.
But then when it froze, when the mud froze, and in those days, often they'd still play on it.
Yeah.
Nowadays, there'd be no chance.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
I remember Martin Hodgson in a Derby cup game at Derby, going up for the ball, went over the centre forward's shoulders, landed on his head, and Arthur Cox, Derby manager, accused him of cheating, malingering. Nothing wrong with the lad. He's just dropped 5-6 feet onto his head on a bone hard pitch, and he was feigning injury. Anyway, onwards and upwards.
Just I think.
Go ahead, Peter.
Last thing about Jimmy Greaves.
Yeah.
I think he was loved because he never did anybody any harm.
No.
If you think about it.
No.
He wasn't a dirty player, and he was never nasty about anybody.
No. Unlike the French bloke who gave him 14 stitches in his shin in the World Cup.
There's no bigotry or boundaries with Jimmy Greaves. Everybody loved him, regardless who he's. And it was lovely to see the fans. There are a lot of coincidence in life.
Yeah, Chelsea, Tottenham,
and West Ham were playing, and they interviewed the spectators as they were going in, and there wasn't they wouldn't show a bad word, would they? But it was interesting that people who did speak were from all communities, and obviously diehard supporters of their particular club. But that was trivia compared to their respect for Jimmy Greaves. I think it's a wonderful thing, that somebody can go through life and to achieve that sort of renown. I think it's remarkable.
Has anybody got BT?
No.
Yeah, because it's a great pity because there's supposed to be a superb. Have you got it, have you, Keith? A superb documentary about Greaves produced by BT last year, and of course the rest of us can't access it. So Keith, you're going to have to record it and do us a disc and send us a copy.
Right. Okay.
Just like that.
Just like
that.
He never totally got the respect of Coventry fans at the time he won the cup, because we were always chanting, "Are you watching Jimmy Greaves?" Because he was determined in his belief that Tottenham were going to beat us, and of course they didn't.
Okay,
I understand that.
I'm going to be a bit careful now because Dave the Beard might join us for the second half. He may have just had technical problems, but he was expecting, and I don't want to steal his thunder on news of the week. So
News of the week, news of the
I
week.
thought, as we're doing football, let's stay on the subject. I, like you, John, thought that was a wretched weekend for referees.
Mm.
I don't know if you want to lead on that, but there are some shocking decisions that were made that we saw Match of the Day. Don't know if anybody saw that.
What gets me is when they take the trouble to, and I know it's his opinion, it's subjective to a degree. It's when they take the trouble to go to the pitch side monitor and still get it wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I find that incredible.
Walker.
Like the
How
Brighton
did Walker
player,
get away with-
Mopey, who was
Sorry,
holding
John.
the player down. Mopey, Brighton, and who are they playing now? Leicester.
Leicester, that's right.
And Mopey was holding the player down and finished up getting a handball for the player he was holding down, but the officials at Stockley Park didn't see him holding him down, even though it was clearly evident on the picture.
What did you think to the Kyle Walker incident?
I thought it was a penalty.
Yeah.
I did. Perhaps not a sending off, although you could say if it was a goal scoring opportunity, denied him that, that's a sending off.
I think.
Did you think it was a penalty?
Well, I think we're suffering from what's his name on the golf used to call paralysis by analysis.
Yeah.
I think they're just looking at pictures saying, oh shit, what am I looking at? What am I looking at? What should I do? I'll make a decision and off, and with no reference to the facts. Well, anybody can make decisions without reference to the facts. It's rather more helpful if you actually look at what you're seeing and say,
Yeah,
that was a penalty. And there have been some rough tackles in the last couple of weeks, and I think I don't mind that personally because it's a contact sport and it should be legislated, but it shouldn't be completely eliminated. The strong play, but there are some. I think this pendulum swung so far the other way. They've just got it wholly wrong. I thought there were some shocking decisions over the weekend. But
I don't like to say it, but I think Ronaldo should have had at least one penalty.
Well,
he should
yeah,
get
I
no
think he
penalties
should have
because he's
two.
Ronaldo.
Well,
Quite right.
I think let's have a sporting memory norm. Ronaldo shouldn't get any penalties.
I agree. Yeah.
However, pause. Alan Shearer thought he should have had two. And
Yeah, you could have given 2 penalties of those 3, but he always goes down easily, doesn't he? So it makes even a genuine penalty look dodgy.
I think he anticipates and goes, we'll listen to his case, but we'll always rule against him. Let's be yeah. Right. So who do you reckon? Chelsea, Liverpool? Who's going to end up the?
Going to be tough. Going to be tough. You're back on form again, aren't you, Liverpool?
We are. The thing that, and Peter, you might have a view on this. The thing that really gets me, when you've had 20 shots on target or on goal, and you've only
Is that in the season for Wednesday?
per game,
Yeah.
the conversion rate's not good enough.
No, it isn't.
Klopp
No.
needs to take him and say, listen, lads, you guys with boots on at the front are supposed to putting the ball in the back of the net. Get on with it,
Yeah, I mean,
And I think
Jota-
it's very poor turnaround.
Jota, when he came, he couldn't stop scoring.
Yeah.
Now he's missing one from a yard away.
Yeah.
Now, that's
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
So you're right. It's bags of possession, bags of position, just not bags of goals.
Yeah. And I think that'll be.
Although they're still top on exactly the same goal difference.
Yeah, but
Nobody-
who we
nobody has
played,
better one.
and I think Chelsea have had the tougher runs, and
Yeah,
that was, I think their manager is an inspiration on legs because that
It would appear so.
substitution he made in the second half transformed the game against Tottenham. Tottenham weren't in it in the second half, and they weren't doing too badly in the first half. Let's be honest, but I think Chelsea. I think they're the one to watch, my view. Cities don't discard them, but I think Chelsea are the one. They look as if they're growing into a team and winning while they're doing it. Whereas Liverpool, I think, are trying to retain a leadership, as are Manchester City, and I think that's the difference. We'll see by midway, won't we?
Yeah, they're very good at holding the ball and passing the ball very quickly. Yeah, they look a very good footballing side.
Yeah.
And Tuchel seems to, seems to having a lot. Well, I don't know, it's luck or knowledge really, but he's certainly getting a lot out of them, isn't he?
Well, I think he's certainly, in the short time he's been chosen, shown he's got a football brain. He can analyze the game. I mean, that second half was a transformation, bringing Conte on, was it? It just changed the whole demeanor and tempo of the game. More energy. God, I'm sounding like Shearer, aren't I?
No.
We've got 3 minutes before, and I must give you advance warning this time. I don't want to like last week. Well, Brian, the credits are running. Oh, and you're gone. So we've got exactly 3 minutes. Is there anything anybody wants to say before we reconvene? Anything wants to add on football?
I'll give you some of these sporting quotes that I've got that
Brilliant.
somebody put together on golf. A couple of Lee Trevinos. If my IQ had been 2 points lower, I would have been a plant somewhere. And then he said, when being asked about playing in a lightning storm, he said, "Hold up a 1 iron and walk. Even God can't hit a 1 iron." He was later struck by lightning.
Yes, he was.
And a couple about Bob Hope. He says, "Whenever I play golf with the president, we make it a foursome. Ford, me, his paramedic, and a faith healer." And Gerald Ford said, "Whenever I would like to deny all allegations by Bob Hope that during my last game of golf I hit an eagle, a birdie, an elk, and a moose." Jack Nicklaus. "The older you get, the stronger the wind gets, and it's always in your face."
Yes, that's true.
Ted Ray, do you remember Ted Ray?
Ted Ray, yes. Carry on, teacher.
Yeah. He said, "Golf is a fascinating game. It's taken me nearly 40 years to discover I can't play it." And finally, "Golf is a lot like walking, broken up by disappointment and bad arithmetic." I don't know who said that, but
You said it, Peter. Yeah.
We've got a minute left, so finish with just you remind me of when I was at serving at Headquarters 18 Group, which is in Northwood, Middlesex, and we had a number of servicemen block membership to Moor Park Golf Club, which had 2 courses, the High and the West, and they used to take the best 9 of each course and open up for competitions, and they used to have the Gerald Ford open invitation, and all the great and the good came to that. And Ronnie Corbett lost his ball in the undergrowth, and Jimmy Tarbuck tells this story about we had to send a search party in to look for him. Okay, guys, I'm going to call it a close now. We'll reconvene at 11.
See you on the other side.
11:15. See you soon.
Right.